met him when I'd come back from Malaya. I was bringing some silk shirts back for him from Kuala Lumpur, and we had lunch together, and we talked together. It was rumoured that when I'd brought home his silk shirts from Kuala Lumpur, there were opium pellets sewn into the cuff. I wouldn't say he was a prodigious drinker. He wasn't a drinker on the Irish pattern, like Brendan Behan, but he did have an incredible capacity for various kinds of whiskey and for very, very dry martinis. He boasted that his liver was totally impervious to decay because he'd started drinking very, very young. When he was taking his degree, his viva voce, he had to be held up by two students, one on either side. He and I were both opium takers at different periods. He had taken opium, and I myself had taken it. We both believed in opium. That was one thing that brought us together. I don't think it was all that great. He loved life in a sense, but life to him, I think, meant really travel, going to exotic places. And this he put down, I think, one of his books as a kind of escape from himself. I don't think he quite knew who he was. And by changing the scenery all the time, he didn't really have to ask that question, who am I? He was interested in little points of canon law, for example. The question arises, is it ever lawful to commit the sin of coitus interruptus in the sexual act? And the answer is yes, if somebody knocks and then comes into the room. I think the main difference between us was this, that he was a convert, and I was, and still am, a cradle Catholic. And there's a tremendous gap between the two. It's something that Evelyn Waugh was always aware of. He himself was a convert. But Evelyn Waugh became very, very rigid, very, indeed, very sanctimonious in some ways. Greene had no real feeling for the church, but he was extremely interested in the theology, which he knew how to exploit in fiction. He'd read my first book, which was called Time for a Tiger, about Malaya, but regarded me as a kind of vaguely amusing, fairly light, entertaining character, and he had no doubt that he himself was the one man qualified to deal with the perturbations of white men's souls in the East and that kind of thing. He was a little too conscious of his own ability, I said at the time. Well, his stories do not make all that much sense in the areas where the stories themselves are set. I remember teaching in Malaysia his novel, The Heart of the Matter, and this was regarded as a great joke because it's about a man who commits suicide because he's in love with two women. The general response of Muslims was, why the hell didn't he marry both of them and marry another two while he was at it? I think his appeal has been decidedly a European appeal, and I think more specifically even a very British appeal. He's a very British writer in some ways. Why all this big Catholic nonsense about sin and throwing himself away from the sight of God and so on. Yeah. Well, he understood the nature of guilt. I don't think he was much troubled by it himself. Again, it was a useful bit of material for fiction. But when they talk about Greenland, this special territory he was supposed to have chartered, the journalistic view is that it's about places where white men go to pieces under the palm trees and drink themselves to death and visit native brothels occasionally and are tortured by various kinds of remorse. I put that to him once, and he said, the real Greenland is just a world in which people are conscious of original sin and don't seem to have much hope of redemption. Of course, this is very un-Catholic. You don't find much of the Christ figure in his work, but you do get a lot of sin. The sense of being thrown out of the Garden of Eden and not able to get back again. I don't think it's very high myself. I don't think it's as high as that of, say, Evelyn Waugh, friend and contemporary, or say, Anthony Powell. I think that he is liked as a writer because he does purvey a special bit of flavor of his own, this mixture of the kind of adventure story and Catholic theology. But the thing about it now, he was fond of Conrad, he was fond of Ford Manic Ford, and he thought of himself as a kind of successor to Conrad, but he knew and admitted to me that he wasn't as great, that he had in a sense opted out of the possibility of greatness. He was writing novels that would sell, some of them of very great brevity. He never gave himself a chance to expand in the depiction of character, or even in the development of his ideas. He ends up as a very good minor writer.